Welcome. Tonight, we journey to the edge of the world. Not a grand metropolis or a bustling village, but a quiet stone tower perched by the sea. A place of solitude, of order, of ceaseless rhythm. Let us take you through a slow and gentle walk through time, as we explore a full day in the life of a 19th century lighthouse keeper. Take a deep breath, enjoy the atmosphere, hug your beds, and feel the moment. Not the moments of high drama storms and shipwrecks, but the stillness between the daily rituals, the weight of routine, the slow dance of man and sea. Let us begin as the first rays of morning light glimmer over the horizon. The morning begins before the sun. A thin line of pale blue begins to bleed into the eastern sky. The sea, still mostly dark, ripples like worn velvet. The air is damp and carries the salt of the Oceania soft scent that clings to everything. Inside the lighthouse, a man stirs. The keeper wakes not to the clang of an alarm clock, but to habit, to the hush of routine embedded in his bones. He swings his legs from the bedrow woolen socks, a hand-knit sweater, trousers softened by time. The room is modest, a small stove, a wooden chest, shelves lined with worn books, navigation guides, logbooks, poetry. A kettle already rests on the iron stove. Water collected from the last rainfall now sits in a bucket nearby. He lights a small fire. The crackle, a comforting friend. Over the flame, he boils the water and pours a strong, dark tea. No sugar, no milk, just heat and bitterness. Before long, he dons his coat and steps out into the pre-dawn chill. The lighthouse stands tall above the rocks, towering, painted white, though dulled now by salt and time. The stairs spiralling upward await their first ascent of the day. Step by step he climbs. Each footfall echoes softly. The walls are lined with brick, hand-laid decades ago. He touches them as he passes, a kind of silent acknowledgement. At the top, the lantern room is quiet. The great Fresnel lens, the marvel of its time, stands like a giant glass jewel. It caught and magnified light to stretch far into the sea warning. Watching, waiting, he checks the mechanisms. The weight-driven clockwork system that slowly turns the lens, the wicks. The oil reservoirs. He polishes the glass. Every morning, without fail. His cloth moves slowly, deliberately, circular motions. He hums a low-tunian old sea shanty, perhaps. Not for speed, but for presence. Outside, the light fades. The sun now crests the edge of the ocean, golden rays spilling across the waves. Another day has begun. He pulls out the logbook. Date, time, weather. Moderate breeze from the southwest, swells from the east, visibility clear. He writes slowly, in ink, the letters small and neat, each line a thread of history. Back downstairs, he removes his coat and pours a second cup of tea, perhaps now a piece of bread, hard and dry, softened by a bit of broth or butter if he's lucky, perhaps preserved fish. The same food, day after day, is less a bother and more a comfort. The radio has not yet come, and so the silence remains unbroken. Outside, The gulls begin their crying. The tide pulls in. The keeper, still seated, closes his eyes. He listens to wind, to water, to the heartbeat of the sea. He lifts his gaze to the small window across from his table, where a sliver of coastline is just visible. The waves, rhythmic and familiar, slap against dark, seaweed-covered stones. It is a view that has changed little in decades, and for that he is grateful. Routine is a balm. The world inside the tower is its own, isolated, predictable, sacred even. With his small breakfast finished, he turns to a narrow shelf beside the table. On it rest several tools, a barometer, a compass, and a set of long-handled tweezers used for maintaining the lantern wick. He takes a moment to check the barometer. The pressure has fallen slightly. He notes it, quietly, in a margin of his logbook. Then, with deliberate care, he selects a brush from the shelf and carries it outside. Not to paint, but to sweep. The lighthouse, like all things by the sea, endures endless winds. Sand, salt, tiny particles blown endlessly across surfaces. Each morning, he sweeps the threshold, the short stone walk, and the first steps of the stairs leading down to the rocky shore. He moves slowly, not from frailty, but from mindfulness. Every bristle that touches the ground is an act of upkeep, of presence. The air now carries the smell of seaweed, tangy, earthy, the scent of life, thriving just out of sight. Below, in tide pools, crabs scuttle sideways, disappearing beneath wet rocks. Above, the gulls dive and call sharp sounds that pierce the silence, then fade again. The keeper returns indoors and checks the oil stores. The lantern cannot fail, it must be fed. The oil, thick and golden, is stored in large containers in the storage room adjacent to his quarters. He moves each canister with care, weighing the contents, rotating the stock. Even though deliveries come once a month, sometimes longer, he never lets a canister run empty. Preparedness is peace. He takes inventory, marking small tally marks in the logbook. The same book he's used for years. Its cover is cracked leather, its pages stained at the edges with use. But inside, the writing is consistent, steady. He sets the book down and allows himself a moment to sit. The wind whistles gently through a crack in the stone, but the room is warm. A steady fire glows in the stove. He takes out a small carving knife and a block of driftwood, another morning ritual. The piece is taking shape, now a miniature rowboat. He sands it lightly with cloth, no rush to finish. It is the carving itself that matters, the feel of the wood beneath his fingers. The way time passes when one's hands are busy. He glances once more toward the window. The tide has risen slightly. Foam traces the rocks. A small boat in the distance, perhaps. A fisherman. He does not wave. They both know this dance. The keeper watches, the boat passes, and time drifts on. It is nearly midday. He rises once more, places the boat carefully on the shelf beside several other miniature fleet. Then he walks to the base of the lighthouse tower and runs his hand along its foundation. Smooth in places, weathered in others. There's a sense of companionship between man and stone, a shared endurance. He re-enters the tower and begins his second ascent. The stairs creak softly underfoot. He counts the steps, without though this body knows the number. The lantern room welcomes him with its quiet hum. The clockwork is steady, the lens glows faintly now, though no flame burns. It catches the light from the sun, reflecting it in quiet rainbows across the glass walls. He circles the room, checking once more each component. The keeper bends down to the rotation mechanism and gives it a gentle winding. The gears click like a purring cat. Then, he sits near the window, high above the sea. The water stretches endlessly, a deep blue mirror flecked with silver. He drinks in the stillness. And in this moment, the lighthouse stands not just as a guide to sailors, but as a quiet temple of solitude, a beacon of routine, of peace. The sun now rests higher in the sky. Its reflection glitters across the water in shifting golden shards. The sea, ever moving, remains calm. Within the lighthouse, the keeper takes to his midday tasks. These are not burdens, but quiet companion siege motion, a gesture of care, each action a reaffirmation of purpose. He prepares for the weather reading. The temperature is measured with a mercury thermometer mounted near the shaded side of the stone wall. Barometric pressure once again is consulted. He records wind direction by watching the billow of a small flag tethered to the tower's peak, its cloth worn and faded from months of sun and storm. He walks to the observation platform outside the lantern room. Here, the world expanser, full view of sea and sky, no ships, no clouds, just the breathing blue of water and the vast canvas of sky. He raises a small brass spyglass to his eye, polished so many times the metal glows. On the farthest edge of vision, perhaps a gull, perhaps nothing. Still, he notes. Horizon clear, no vessels sighted. Back inside, he updates the log. Date, time, conditions unchanged. The ink flows slowly. He blots it with a small square of cloth and closes the book gently, as if not to wake it. From a cupboard, he retrieves a small tin box. Inside are tools for repair, needle and thread, tiny screws, a pair of pliers. Nothing extravagant, but enough. The tower, exposed to sea winds and time, requires constant care. Today, a hinge on the eastern window has come slightly loose. He climbs again, slowly, carrying the box. The stairs know his weight, the walls his breath. He kneels by the window and begins. Screw turned, dust brushed away, wood gently oiled. No rush. The sea continues its low song beyond the glass. The wind lifts and falls, as if it too follows a schedule. He pauses, lets his hand rest upon the stone sill. Weathered smooth by years of sea air, cold to the touch, even in sunlight. Once the window is secure, he remains kneeling, just listening. There's something sacred in these moments. A communion with stillness. Down below, the gulls wheel lazily over rocks exposed by the receding tide. The shoreline darkens with kelp and barnacles, slick with brine. Time for a brief meal. Downstairs, the keeper sets a small pot upon the stove. Potatoes, perhaps, or split peas soaked the night before. He adds dried herbs, a pinch of salt. The kettle is set beside the pot, warming for another round of tea. He sits in his corner chair, the one nearest the fire. The soup simmers. The steam carries hints of rosemary and earth. From the wooden chest, he retrieves a book. The pages are thin, the cover soft from handling. It is a volume of poetry. The ink is faded, but the words linger. He reads aloud softly. "Full fathom 5 thy father lies. Of his bones are coral made. Those are pearls that were his eyes." Shakespeare, he thinks, the rhythm as familiar to him now as the tide. He stirs the pot gently, then spoons out a serving into a shallow bowl. The food is plain, but it is warm, nourishing. He eats slowly, savouring each bite. The room quiet, save for the popping of the fire and the whisper of steam. Afterwards, he pours another cup of tea. This one sweeter, brewed with dried berries kept in a tin. The flavour carries memory. Summer, sunshine, a gift sent once from a distant cousin. He has rationed it carefully over the years. Meal complete. He rinses the bowl with fresh water collected from the cistern. The bowl is wiped dry with a cloth, then returned to its shelf. Everything has a place. Every object a story. Outside, the light has shifted again. The sun a little lower now, shadows beginning to stretch. The keeper walks outside. He takes the long path down the rocky trail toward the sea. There is a narrow cove, tucked behind a cluster of boulders. He visits it sometimes. No one else knows it, or if they do, they never speak of it. He sits on a flat rock worn smooth by decades of wind. The sea is just steps away, lapping at the shore. He removes his boots and places his feet into the tide. The cold shocks him awake, but only gently. It is a reminder that life, even in isolation, moves, breathes, endures. A piece of driftwood bobs nearby. He retrieves it. Perhaps it will be his next carving. He watches the clouds drift above. A seagull cries out, then swoops low across the water's surface. He smiles. It is enough. He stays for a long time. Minutes. Maybe an hour. Eventually, he rises, brushes off his trousers, and begins the slow walk back. The lighthouse stands ahead, strong and sure, a sentinel. Inside, he adds more wood to the stove. The flames respond eagerly. Soon, the room is once more filled with warmth. He retrieves the new piece of driftwood and examines it under the glow of the fire. There's a curve in the grain, perhaps a whale this time, or a seal. But he doesn't begin carving. Not yet. Instead, he writes a letter. The paper is coarse, the ink dark. His handwriting is steady but quiet. Few words, simple updates. Weather calm, mechanism sound, spirit content. He folds the paper, seals it with a drop of wax, and places it in a small tin box by the door ready for the next passing boat. Even if the letter takes weeks to arrive, or longer, the act of writing it matters. It is a thread, a tether to the world beyond the waves. The sun now brushes the horizon. The light shifts to amber, then gold, then the softest shade of rose. He climbs once more to the lantern room. The lens glimmers faintly. Soon, it will burn bright. He checks the oil, winds the clockwork, cleans the glass one final time. And as the first stars begin to blink into view, he lights the wick. A soft flame grows. The beacon awakens. A lighthouse does not call attention to itself. It does not boast. It simply shines. And so does the keeper. Quietly, faithfully, endlessly. As the evening deepens, so too does the quiet. The stars arrive gently, one by one. First, a bright point in the east, then a softer gleam in the south. Soon, the sky above the lighthouse becomes a field of ancient light. The lantern at the top of the tower has now taken its place in the nightly constellation. It rotates with slow dignity, casting its gentle beam across the waters, warning the unseen, guiding the unknown. And so the rhythm continues, the slow turn of light, the quiet steps across stone, the soft breath of sea and time. There is no ending here, only stillness, only the warm hum of presence. The lighthouse will keep its watch. The waves will carry the hours gently forward. And now, dear listener, you may let go. Let your thoughts drift like lanterns on the tide. Let the hush of night wrap softly around your shoulders. You've made it here. Let your breath slow. Let your body rest. And enjoy your soothing sleep. We'll be here, quietly, light turning, waiting for when you return. The light continues to turn. The night deepens, and with it, the hush of all things ancient and still. We leave one voice behind now, and enter another. Like changing hands on a lantern, the flame remains. Only the keeper shifts. And so, if your eyes are heavy, let them be. If your breath is slow, let it stay.
I will carry the story forward now, gently, into the quiet hours of Chapter 5. Let us continue. Time does not stop. Even in stillness, it flows, quietly, steadily, like the tide beneath the moon. The keeper has returned to his rest. The final page has been turned. But the story does not end with the closing of a journal or the silence of a final step. This is a chapter not about him, but about the light that endures. It is morning now, soft and silver. The sky holds the hush of early hours. When the world has not yet fully awakened, the lighthouse stands as it always has, quiet, unwavering. There is no audience, no applause, no announcement of purpose, and yet it remains. The birds return first. Gulls wheel lazily above, their calls faint and slow. A single puffin perches on a rock below, blinking into the new day. The sea, touched by dawn, rolls gently against the shore. Within the tower, silence lives, but it is not the silence of emptiness. It is the silence of legacy. Let us stay a while longer here. Let us walk through the spaces left behind. The small table by the stove, the dented kettle, the shelf of weathered books, their spines bowed with age. A pair of boots by the door, laces undone. A carved seal on the windowsill, facing the sea. These are not just objects, they are echoes. They speak of routine, of devotion, of quiet care. Above, the lantern continues its turn, a measured spin. Each rotation a gesture of continuity. If one listens closely, one can almost hear the heartbeat of the lighthouse. It pulses not in sound, but in rhythm. A turning, a sweeping, a watching, and still the sea rolls. It has seen this light for decades, perhaps centuries. It has met it with storm and with stillness, with thunder and fog and moonlight. The sea knows the lighthouse, and the lighthouse knows the sea. But it is not only the sea that sees the light. There are stories carried on currents, passed from one mariner to another. Tales of a tower that stands alone, forever lit. Some say it's manned by ghosts. Others say it lights itself. But the truth is simpler. The light continues because it was tended with love, with care, with attention. It was entrusted, and that trust was honoured. Even now, with the keeper no longer present, the routines echo. Another figure arrives, not young, not old, wearing a thick coat. Collar turned up against the morning chill. She pauses at the base of the tower, one gloved hand resting on the worn stone. She listens, not for sound, but for feeling. Then she steps inside. The door creaks open. The scent of wood smoke lingers faintly. She walks slowly through the rooms, touching nothing, yet noticing everything. The kettle, the blanket folded at the foot of the bed, a feather on the windowsill. The journal. She does not open it. Instead, she climbs. Each step on the spiral staircase is taken with care. Not caution, but reverence. She reaches the lantern room, and there it is. The lens, the flame, the turning. She stands before it for a long moment. Then she opens a pouch and removes a small oil can, a cloth, a set of tools, and she begins to clean. The work is not rushed. It is not loud. It is an act of continuity. Outside, the wind picks up gently, stirring the sea. And as she wipes the glass, tightens the fittings, adjusts the flame, the lighthouse continues to shine. Not because it must, but because someone chose to tend it. This too is a kind of love. Below, the waves roll on, and elsewhere, far from the lighthouse, people move through their day, unaware of this moment. But here, in this tower, a light is cared for, and because of that, the world is, in some small way, steadier. Let us now step back. Further still. Let us imagine the lighthouse across time. Imagine it standing during storms so fierce the sea swallowed the sky. Imagine a keeper pressing their shoulder against the wind to shut the door. Imagine nights where no ships came, no lights returned, only fog and cold and silence. And yet, Each night, the lamp was lit. Imagine children born nearby, seeing the light from their windows and falling asleep knowing it would turn, as it always had. Imagine a sailor, caught in rain and darkness, seeing that faint arc on the horizon and steering toward it with a breath of relief. These are not dramatic stories. They are not recorded in history books, but they are the soft threads that hold the world together. The keeper is gone now, but the light remains. Let us return once more to the tower. Evening is approaching again. The woman finishes her work. She descends the stairs, pausing at the window halfway down. She looks out at the sea. The sun is low now, casting gold on the surface like molten copper. She smiles faintly, then continues her descent. In the keeper's old room, she unpacks a small satchel. Inside, a clean mug, a tin of tea, a folded blanket, a fresh log for the fire. She places the mug on the table, sets the log in the stove, lights it with care. The fire crackles. She doesn't need to say anything. The space welcomes her. She sits where he once sat. Her gaze travels across the room. She doesn't change anything. She adds only one thing. A photograph. Small. Black and white. A younger version of the old keeper, smiling faintly beside a freshly painted door. She places it on the shelf beside the carved seal. And then she breathes. The lighthouse glows gently above her. The light turns, and the world, once again, feels held. The sea will always roll. The sky will always shift. The world will change again and again. But some things are meant to remain, not in form, but in spirit. The lighthouse is not only a building. It is a promise, a rhythm, a poem written in light. It says, "You are not alone." To all who pass near, to all who drift far. It offers direction. It offers presence. Without asking anything in return, we carry lighthouses inside us. Each act of quiet care, each moment of patient watching, each tending of another's safety, even unseen. These are our lanterns. And so we light them, again and again and again, until the world is bright with gentleness, until the storms soften, until the waves no longer frighten. And when we sleep, finally, deeply, it is to the sound of a flame that never falters. The sea remains, the light turns, the keeper rests, and you may rest too. The end does not always come with thunder, not with crashing waves or broken glass. Sometimes it comes softly, like dusk settling on a familiar path. Quiet, gradual, barely noticed, until the day is already done. And so we begin this chapter, not at the peak of activity, but at the edge of it, when the tower has grown silent, when the flame has gone out. Let us sit in the stillness, together. Let us witness the gentle unravelling of time, as the lighthouse, once so full of purpose, begins to rest. It begins with a letter, folded once, sealed in brown paper, left on a wooden table, perhaps, or passed from hand to hand at a harbour office, its words few but firm, effective immediately. Station decommissioned, final inspection pending. And with that, routine begins to fade. No more logs to be filled, no more lamps to trim, no more oil to order, no ships to wait for, just time. The keeper, whoever is last, is not surprised. They had seen it coming. The new lights are electric now, farther-reaching, remotely controlled. There are buoys now, satellites, modern marvels that don't need stairs or storms. And yet, a part of them lingers, as if their heartbeat still echoes up through the tower stone. There is no bitterness, just the strange sensation of no longer being needed, of a chapter quietly closing. The final days are not dramatic. There is no ceremony, no farewell, only small gestures of goodbye, a final polishing of the lens. Not because anyone will see it, but because it deserves to be seen. A last sweep of the floor, a journal entry dated, though no one may read it. A cup of tea drunk slowly beside the cold stove. Eyes lingering over the sea one last time. The keeper walks the perimeter of the lighthouse, checks the hinges on the door, feels the soft give of sand underfoot, listens to the sound of the gulls. They do not cry differently today, but perhaps they circle a little lower. Perhaps the sky feels just a little wider. Inside, a final log is closed. A note is taped to the door. Lantern extinguished. All systems wound down. Farewell. Then the door is locked. The key is turned slowly, then slipped into a coat pocket. And the keeper walks away. Not hurriedly, not mournfully, just quietly. Just as they had lived. Time continues, as it always has, as it always will. And without the presence of hands and breath and boots, the lighthouse begins to change. Not all at once, not in collapse, but in slow forgetting. Dust begins to gather where boots once stamped. Cobwebs appear like lace in corners. The stove grows cold, its belly empty. The logbook remains on the desk, its spine curling in the damp. And still, the sea rolls on. It does not mourn, but it remembers in its own way. Waves still wash against the stones. Wind still whistles through the high windows. Seabirds return, curious now. One nests atop the lantern housing. Another pecks at the salt-worn glass. In time, vines begin their patient climb up the base. They do not ask permission. They simply reach. A storm comes, and the rain makes its way through hairline cracks. The wooden steps grow soft. The paint peels. And yet, the tower stands, because it was built to endure. Even without its flame, it is still a lighthouse. Years pass. The tower, once a point of precision and care, becomes part of the landscape. Locals mention it now and then. Children point from clifftops. Old sailors glance at it when the fog rolls in, grateful for what it once did. Sometimes, a visitor will climb the overgrown path, step carefully through the cracked door, marvel at the silence. They'll find rusted tools, a shuttered stove. The journal, its last page faded but still legible. Tonight the light turns no more, but the sea remembers, and I too will carry its rhythm with me. The visitor may not fully understand, but they'll feel it. In the hush, in the echo of the wind up the stairwell, in the way the lens catches a sliver of sun and casts it faintly across the room, a ghost of its former light. They do not stay long, but when they leave, they walk slower, more thoughtful, as if they've brushed against something sacred. With no one left to tidy, nature steps in gently. Moss spreads between the bricks. Lichen dusts the outer walls. Birdsong fills the upper rooms. In the keeper's quarters, a mouse has made a quiet nest in the folds of an old blanket. Rain taps on the roof like a soft visitor. Sunlight dances through the broken shutters. And the wind, ever patient, becomes the lighthouse's last inhabitant. It moves through the rooms like memory itself. Never still, never sharp, always there. And sometimes, if the sea is calm and the sky painted just so, you can almost imagine the lantern turning. Almost. Some say the keeper still walks there, not in body, but in spirit. That sometimes when the moon is high and the tide is low, you can hear footsteps on the stair. A kettle boiling with no fire. A journal page turning, though no hand moves it. Not ghosts exactly, just echoes. The echo of a life lived quietly, of duty performed in solitude, of care offered to strangers who never knew they were being protected. The echo of a flame that once burned each night, unseen by most, but vital to some. And that is enough. That is everything. Now, dear listener, your eyes may be heavy. Let the final images wash over you like waves at high tide. Imagine lying in the keeper's bed, the woolen blanket soft against your chest, the fire a dull glow, the sea murmuring below, the room breathing with wind and warmth. The lens above no longer turns, but you remember its rhythm. You carry it in your breath. Inhale, exhale. Light, dark. Even when the flame is gone, its memory glows in you. You are safe. You are held. You are at the edge of the world, but never alone. The sea continues. The stars wheel overhead, and the stone tower, now silent, still watches, still waits, still rests, just like you. The sea is quiet now. The tides pull gently at the edges of the world, like a child tugging at the hem of a curtain, wondering what lies behind it. And here, at the cliff's edge, the lighthouse stands. No flame burns inside its crown. No footstep echoes in its stairwell. No kettle sings from the hearth below. And yet, it dreams. Yes, stone too can dream. The lighthouse dreams not in hours or minutes, but in seasons, in tides, in the language of rust and salt. Its thoughts are slow, like ivy climbing over brick, like fog creeping over moorland. They are not thoughts as we know them, not words, but impressions. A warm hand on a cold railing, boots on stairs, damp from rain. The flick of a match in a lantern room. The soft breath of someone reading quietly in the dark. It remembers all these things, not as a list, but as a feeling. Like a coat that holds the scent of its wearer long after they've gone. It remembers the weight of the wind leaning against its windows, the laughter of a child outside, long ago, chasing seabirds with a red scarf trailing behind. It remembers storms that came like fury and left behind calm like a benediction. It remembers being needed, and then being left. But it was not sorrow that followed, it was rest. In its dreams, the lighthouse does not distinguish past from present. It sees all keepers at once, the one with a salt grey beard who hummed as he worked. The woman with calloused hands and quiet eyes who kept her journal in verse. The boy who grew into a man within its walls and carved initials into a hidden beam that no one else would ever find. They come and go in its dreams, not as ghosts, but as echoes. They open cupboards, tend fires, stare out windows with eyes full of salt and thought. Sometimes they speak to each other, a conversation never heard in life, but aloud in memory. Did you ever tire of the sea? Never. I only wished I could thank it. For what? For teaching me how to be alone, without being lonely. The lighthouse listens. Always it listens. In its tall silence, it has never been deaf to humanity. It has simply observed us with patience. The lighthouse dreams also of the sea, its first companion, its oldest muse. Not always gentle, but always honest. The sea speaks in rhythm. Crash, withdraw, crash, withdraw. A lullaby of repetition. The lighthouse remembers the taste of sea spray on its ledges, the vibration of thunder rolling through its bones, the way snow settles like breath against its crown. It remembers being struck by lightning once, not in fear, but in awe. For one brief moment, it shone with light not its own. It dreams of mist, so thick it felt like wool. Days when even the sun forgot to rise, and it became the only eye in a world of blindness. It dreams of sunlight, too, streaming through salt-streaked glass, casting rainbows across the stairwell. In its dream, the sky never remains the same. It wears clouds like moods, now grey, now golden, now scarlet with goodbye. And the sea beneath it mirrors every shift, every sigh, every silence. Even now, with its beacon long extinguished, the lighthouse hears things. In its dreams, sound becomes memory. The clatter of cutlery on a tin plate, the brush of a broom across floorboards. The steady tick of a wall clock, its hands moving just slightly ahead of time. It hears laughter, rare, but real. The kind of laughter that blooms only after weeks of quiet, when one forgets their own voice, then finds it again, like an old coat rediscovered. It remembers music, a gramophone once, later a harmonica, and sometimes just humming. Tunes without name, but full of longing. The lighthouse did not dance, but it held the rhythm. It held it in stone and silence. A partner to solitude, a companion to the unseen. And always, always, the lighthouse dreams of light. The one thing it was born to carry. Not fire, not electricity, but intention. It remembers the first time its lamp was lit, the flare, the silence after, the beam stretching outward like an outstretched hand. It remembers each night the flame was tended, wick trimmed, lens cleaned. It remembers shining through storms so thick even stars dared not peek. It remembers. It remembers guiding. It remembers saving. Though it never knew the names of those it spared from wreckage, it knew the purpose of its pulse. Light is not loud, but it is loyal. And though its beam no longer moves, it dreams that it still does. It dreams of stretching its fingers across the sea, of touching ships in the dark, of being seen by someone who didn't know they needed it until they did. There are those who remember the light, even now. Not many. Just a few. An old man who once saw it from the freighter when he was 19. He tells the story sometimes, to grandchildren, to strangers, to himself. A woman who painted it every year on her birthday, though she never saw it in person, only heard of it and dreamed of the safety it promised. A sailor who once wept watching the beam fade behind him, uncertain whether he'd return. They remember it not as a tower, but as a symbol, a friend, a fixed point, a pulse in the dark. The lighthouse does not know this, but perhaps it dreams it, and that is enough. The night is long now. You too may feel it stretching, deepening, thickening into calm. The lighthouse continues to dream, not only backward, but forward. It wonders what will become of it. Will it collapse, stone by stone, until only foundation remains? Will it be restored someday, lit once more for ceremony rather than service? Will someone turn it into a home and hang laundry from its balconies? The lighthouse does not worry. It is beyond worry. It accepts time the way cliffs accept the sea, carved, softened, patient. And whatever comes, it will be. It will be part of the dream. And now you may rest. Let the turning light, though only imagined, guide you into stillness. The sea whispers beneath your thoughts. The tower above you breathes slowly, its old walls holding the memory of warmth. You are safe here. You are welcome here. Breathe with the rhythm of tides and lanterns past. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. This too is a lighthouse. This stillness, this breath, this pause. Let it carry you. Let it hold you. Let it guide you home. Before the first stone was laid, before the beacon turned, before boots rang on wooden steps and oil flamed in polished brass, there was the sea. Not just water, but story, and rhythm, and memory. Tonight, we do not stand within the lighthouse. We drift beside it, below it, beyond it. We let the sea speak, and if we listen softly, patiently, we may hear what it remembers. The sea speaks in motion. It has no tongue, but its words are written in the pull and release of water, in the drag of waves across pebbled shores, in the sigh of surf curling over sandbars. The tide is not random, it is ritual. It comes, it goes, it returns, and so does memory. The sea remembers not in names or dates, but in rhythm. The rise and fall of the world, the ebb of human ambition, the flow of time, steady, salt-laced, ceaseless. It touches everything and takes nothing permanently. Even the most solid cliff will soften if kissed long enough by water. Even the most forgotten moment will ripple through time if echoed by enough hearts. It was the sea that called the lighthouse into being. It whispered of wrecks in the night and sailors lost without bearing. It begged, wordless but relentless, for a flame, a mark, a witness. And so the tower was built, not as a command over the sea, but as a conversation. The flame was not a challenge, it was an answer. And the sea in return kept its own form of watch. It wrapped itself around the rocks, never flooding the tower, never still, but never cruel. It tested, but it never truly took. Even on nights when storms roared and the beacon vanished behind waves the height of houses, the sea never claimed the tower. The ghost of a sail, a promise not forgotten. The sea does not hoard, but it delivers. To the foot of the lighthouse, it brings gifts, messages, fragments, a boot sole smoothed by salt, a note in a bottle never opened, a child's toy boat, its paint faded to pale grey. Each one a memory, each one a story, left not to be claimed, but to be noticed. Even now, long after the keeper's footfalls have faded, the sea leaves offerings, not for thanks, not for tribute, just because it remembers. And memory, even for water, must be shared. Sometimes the lighthouse and the sea spoke in silence. A wave striking a rock was a sentence. A sudden gust of wind was a question. A slow, curling tide was a lullaby. And the lighthouse responded, not in voice, but in rhythm. The turning of its lantern, the hiss of oil catching flame, the creak of its frame against the wind. It said, "I see you." The sea answered, "I carry you." This dialogue continues even now, even with the light extinguished, even with the stairs empty, even with no one to write it down. The sea continues to respond to a signal that once was. Because to remember is not always to hold tightly. Sometimes it is simply to move in time with something once meaningful. The sea has seen everything. A proposal on the cliffs. Nervous hands clasped over cold fingers. An argument that echoed so loudly it frightened birds into the air. A child lost in fog. Then found again by following the horn's call. An old man scattering ashes into a wave but retreated too soon. It has seen whales breach in moonlight. It has seen wreckage ablaze on water that refused to drown the fire. It has seen lovers write their names on driftwood and send them out together. It remembers them all, not because it chooses to, but because remembering is what water does. It holds, it carries, and sometimes it returns. The last keeper loved the sea. Not loudly, not in poems, but in glances. He would stand outside the lantern room on quiet nights and just look. Not for ships, not for storms, just to look. Sometimes he'd speak, to himself, to the wind, or maybe to the sea. "It's you and me, old friend," he'd say. "You take the outside, I'll take the flame." And the sea would respond with a gentle wave lapping at the rocks below. The keeper never needed more. He understood, as only the quiet do. That presence was enough. That duty was not about applause, but about showing up. That love, too, can be unspoken, and the sea remembers him as it does all who served the light. Not in portraits, not in songs, but in motion. In the endless, ceaseless returning of wave to shore. Now, dear listener, you may rest. Imagine the sea just beyond your window. Imagine its hush, its whisper, its weight. Let it roll through your thoughts and carry away the clutter. Restoration begins not with building, but with understanding. They catalogue everything. The books on the shelf, the stove's rusted mouth, the damp page left in the middle of a poem. They find the carving behind the bed frame, a date and a pair of initials. They don't know whose, but they record it anyway. Nothing is too small. A glass bottle near the hearth, a length of rope coiled into the shape of memory, a boot sole beside the stairs. All of it is part of what remains. Outside, the path is cleared slowly, brambles trimmed, not ripped, each weed a decision. They do not erase the age of the place. They simply begin to make space for what it may become. Eventually, they bring tools, not drills or cranes, not yet. Just brushes, cloths, wood polish, a thermos of tea. They begin with the banister, one stroke at a time, removing decades of dust without removing the wood story. The spiral staircase creaks beneath them as it, backpacks full of notebooks, tools, gloves. Their hands touch the door not as conquerors, but as pilgrims. They do not force it open. They wait. They breathe in the age of the place. When the key turns, slowly, stiffly, it is less an unlocking and more a permission. The door opens. The air within exhales. Dust and memory drift into the light. They do not speak much at first. The visitors walk room to room. They take quiet notes. They touch nothing with bare hands. They read the final log. The ink faded but legible. Lantern extinguished. All systems wound down. Farewell. They pause there, not in sadness exactly, but in reverence. Upstairs, one of them runs a gloved hand over the railing. Dust lifts like breath. Light filters through cracked glass, casting crooked lines across the stair. And still, they say little, only nods, glances. The silence of those who know that some places speak first. And so they listen, as it always did. They smile. Some steps have softened. They mark them for future care. But they still hold, still carry. Up in the lantern room, the glass is clouded. They do not clean it with haste. They sit beside it first. Let the sea reflect through the haze. Let the old fingerprints rest a moment longer. Then, only then, they begin to polish. Not to make it new, only clear. Clear enough to see the horizon again. The light still turns, even now, long after the keeper has gone to rest. The sea has quieted. The wind, too. The tower stands, as it always has. Not asking, not demanding, only holding. Holding memory, holding time, holding silence. You've walked with us now, through stone corridors and salt air, through oil-lit evenings and driftwood mornings. You've felt the rhythm of duty and the hush of solitude. And now you are here, at the edge of wakefulness, at the soft shoreline of sleep. Let it come, like the tide, quiet, steady, without force. Let your breath match the sea. Let your thoughts be light on the water. And let this story become a dream. You are safe, you are held, and the light will keep turning.